Hey there everybody, what's going on? This is TwoHeadedFlounder. Welcome back to another Pokemon post-rotation deck profile video. Today we're going to be taking a look at this really cool GX card right here. This is Scizor-GX. If my phone would focus, that'd be lovely. Every time we gotta make a video. Alright, so Scizor-GX is really cool. 210 HP, stage 1, has the ability Danger Perception. Essentially, if it falls under 100 HP, or, exactly 100 HP, its attacks do 80 more damage, and as you can see, Steel Wing already does 80, so as long as we take 110 damage, we're going to be doing 160 for 2 energy, and that's really solid. Of course, we don't want to be that low on health, because that's not really good, but, the ability to do 160 for 2 is pretty phenomenal. Also, Steel Wing, during your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks, so they might be able to 2-hit KO us. All of a sudden, they're not going to be able to 2-hit KO us because that's minus 30 damage. They're going to have to play around that, and that can definitely really annoy your opponent and ruin their strategy. Of course, we also have Crosscut GX, 100 plus damage for 3 colorless. If your opponent's active Pokemon is an evolution card, this attack does 100 more damage. So essentially, 200 damage to a lot of the GX cards that really need to be hit for 200 damage or more. So, really a super solid card in general, really good damage. I like this card a whole lot, and I'm not sure how good Scizor-GX is going to be, but this is definitely going to be a pet project of mine. So, to get started off, let's look at what we have to start with. We have 4 copies of Scizor. Of course, Scizor is very important to the Scizor line due to the fact that we need to evolve from Scizor. Scizor is awesome. It has 70 HP as opposed to something like 60. I kind of wish maybe it had like 80 or something. Scizor in the video game is usually like pretty solid on HP and stuff like that, so 70 seems a little low to me, honestly. But 1 retreat, 70 HP, super solid, weak to fire. Both our guys are going to be weak to fire, which might be a problem, but you never know until fire gets big. So firstly, the attack. Twin Play is for 1 energy, and you get to search your deck for 2 Scizor, put them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. Really awesome card, just duplicate Scizors, and you don't have to worry about getting them into play. You can just use the attack, it's great. You don't have to worry about using something like Alolan Vulpix to get guys into play, or Dunsparce, because Scizor can do that for you. And then for double colorless, Agility does 20 damage, flip a coin if heads, prevent all effects of attacks, including damage to this Pokemon during your next turn. So, always just kind of an annoying thing to do, solve for time. If you can manage to get the heads, that's great. The only one negative thing I kind of can associate with Scizor is there's no resistance. I would have maybe liked a resistance to fighting or something, but I mean, they all can't be winners. And Scizor's just a really good card in general, super solid. So next up, we have 3 copies of Scizor-GX. What can we say? We've already talked about this guy. He's the main attacker in the deck. It's going to be very annoying. 210 HP, reduced damage done to it by 30, so your opponent's going to have to effectively be hitting 240 for a knockout. And that's not to say that they're going to be able to do that with every deck, and not to mention we are running some other stuff in this deck would make it even more difficult for them to do so. So 3 copies of that. Has a really good matchup against Gardevoir, I think, in general, and I'm really a big fan of the Scizor-GX. I like cards like this, and they're not usually always good, so hoping that this one will work out pretty well. Next up, we have 2 copies of Dhelmise. This is the Steelworker one. What it lets you do is with the ability, of course. Each of your metal Pokemon will do 10 more damage to your opponent's active, effectively meaning the 80 attack damage from Scizor's attack will go up to 90. So be hitting things with weakness for 180, and then, of course, hitting for 200 with 2 Dhelmise in play. You're probably not always going to have 2 into play. Usually you're probably just going to have 1 because of bench restrictions, but just having 2 in the deck is very important because you want the extra damage regardless. We have no Psychic Energy or any way to use Anchor Shot, so that's not really worth mentioning. What is worth mentioning, that is, has a 2 retreat cost, which is pretty hefty, because Scizor and Scizor both have a 1 retreat cost. So you're going to see, from this point on, we have a really high retreat cost in this deck. Next up, we have 2 copies of Registeel. So Turbo Arm is a fantastic attack. It is essentially just energy acceleration. If we have energy in the discard pile, we're going to be able to take it out, put it onto Scizor. on the bench, or maybe power up another one of our steel type attackers that may need the energy. Iron Head is an additional attack that we can do. It's not super solid. I wouldn't advise trying to get that in on a game, but you know, you never know what you're going to have to run into, and doing 90 damage to something could be relevant. But 3 retreat costs, resistance to psychic, and another weakness to fire, 130 HP on basic. It's just super solid, and if you lead off with it, it's not even that big of a deal because Turbo Arm is such a great attack. Next up, we got 2 copies of Lele. So Lele is, of course, very important due to the Wonder Tag ability, and it's going to allow us to search out our deck for a supporter card. And we are playing quite a bit of supporters in this deck just because I think that this is going to be a very supporter-heavy, reliant deck. But Lele, just, again, as always, a great secondary attacker with energy drive, and other than that, it's kind of just there to grab as a supporter. Next up, we have a copy of Scizor-GX. So I really like Scizor-GX. I want him to fit into more decks than I usually am able to fit him into, but I think he's fantastic overall. The ability Slice Off will allow you to, when you play this onto your bench from your hand, remove a special energy attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon. And there is quite a bit of decks playing special energy. I'm not sure how popular the unit energies are going to be after rotation or not, but double colorless is always going to be a thing, and rainbow energies might also make a return in something, who knows. So Slice Off is just really solid. Gale Blade does 70 damage for a metal and double colorless. You get to shuffle, if you want, Scizor-GX and all cards attached to it back into your deck. And I think that's a fantastic attack overall. It's like set up with Shaman. Set up stability. What's the attack on Shaman EX? Oh geez, it's been a while. Anyway, it's just really solid. Get some chip damage in, and then shuffle it back into the deck. Be able to replay Slice Off again later down the road. But Blade GX, it might be actually a GX attack of choice in this deck, depending on how games go, due to the fact that it will allow you to take 1 prize card for a metal energy if it would focus. I need to get like a camera that's not terrible. So yeah, basically take a prize card. And I think what's going to happen is we're going to a slower format for a lot of stage 1 and 2 decks, where we're going to be playing these basics that aren't exactly stacked on HP. So I think that maybe down the road, Blade GX could definitely be a very important GX attack in a variety of decks. So next up we have Solgaleo Prism. So I know there's another Solgaleo. I really like it, but due to restrictions on the deck, I'm kind of just trying so much here. But Solgaleo, 160 HP Prism, Radiant Star for 1 energy. For each of your opponent's Pokemon in play, attach a metal energy card from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way you like. And I think that's awesome. Not only is it going to be able to energy accelerate itself, and then we could use Corona Impact, but just getting an energy on like 3 Scizor on the bench could be useful. Then we just need to do single energy attachments to them, which is always great. But yeah, I think that this is a great way to energy accelerate Scizor, because this is going to be one of those decks where you have to attach an energy every single turn. If you miss a turn, it's going to maybe cost you the game. Also, again, very hefty retreat cost, and another weakness to fire. And lastly, we are playing a single copy of the new Celesteela. So, 140 HP on a basic is really solid, especially when it's not even a Prism Star or anything like that. But Moonraker, essentially if both you and your opponent's prize cards equal 6. So if you have 3 and they have 3, if you have 5 and they have 1, etc. You get to do this attack for 1 metal energy, and it does 160 damage. And of course that is just insane. That is a lot of damage to be doing, and for 1 energy alone. So very important, cool card to be teching into most metal decks, because there's a whole lot of upsides, and like really one downside is leading off with it, and it's just a single copy in the deck. So most of the time we're going to avoid that. But yeah, that could definitely happen, and it's got a forward treat cost, so we're going to have to be relying on a lot of switching stuff in this deck because of the high retreat costs of most of the Pokemon. So, next up, moving on to supporters. We got 4 copies of Cynthia. I say it all the time. Cynthia is the best supporter in the game, and just playing as much as possible is probably the best idea, because shuffling your hand and then drawing 6 is always just really good. Next up, we're playing 3 copies of Guzma. I kind of want to play 4, and at first I had 4 in here, but we have other cards in the deck as well that would allow us to switch. So I'm running on 3. We also have Palpad, so technically there's 5 potential Guzma. So, you know, just be a little more frugal with them. Don't discard them, I guess. You can definitely up the count to 4. I would even recommend that. But I got some other cool things in here that I like. So we're down to 3 on that. So this one I might lose some people. This one might seem a little odd. I'm playing 3 copies of Kukui. Kukui, of course, when it came out, was a really awesome card, allowing you to draw 2 cards and do 20 damage extra. That's really awesome. And then we lost Via Seeker, and it kind of fell off the face of the earth. But I think in conjunction with Scizor's low attack power from the start, doing the extra damage could be very potentially good. Also, we're going to have Steelworker to help the damage output. So as long as we have 2 Delmais on the bench, Scizor up in the active, and we Kukui, it's extra 40 damage, and we get to draw 2 cards. I think that's pretty useful. I was debating on whether or not I wanted to run 2 of this or the extra Guzma. I went with the 3rd one because I figured with Palpad, I don't really necessarily want to be Palpadding for Kukui. I want to Palpad for other more powerful supporters. But I really like the idea of running a couple of Kukui in the deck, and I just thought it was a little silly to just run 2. So, 3 copies of Kukui. So, we got a couple of other supporters in here that are for draw power. We have 2 copies of Copycat. Shuffle your hand to your deck, draw as many cards as your opponent has in their hand. Of course, if we're going against a Zoroark deck, this is the key card to kind of counteract them. You're going, okay, I don't know why you're drawing 20 cards. Copycat. Alright, I have a 20 card hand. We're good to go. But yeah, Copycat is very, very powerful. Of course, we're also playing 2 copies of Judge. Each player shuffles their hand into the deck, draws 4 cards. This is our best disruption at the moment. Lima is interesting but kind of scary to use, and it's 50-50 on both ends, but Judge is a solid 4-4. So, yeah, as long as we're not playing against Zoroark decks, this is going to be good for slowing down our opponent, and I think with a slow deck like Scizor that, again, really needs those energies every single turn, I think this is super solid for slowing down our opponents. We are playing 1 copy of Lily. I wanted to play another one. I just, 4 copies of Cynthia is very important. I'm playing Kukui already. We have Copycat and Judge as well. I definitely would not recommend leaving Lily out. I think Lily is super good in the new format, especially with the first turn Lily. But, yeah, I only had room for 1, and that's what we're running with. So, draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. If you use on the first turn, draw 8. So, and last but not least, we have a copy of Acerola. If we can avoid getting knocked out, we're going to do it. Also, if we have something in the active in the active because of the high retreat cost, Acerola it up. Our opponent's going to have to attack it eventually, whether it be Sagaleo, Kartana, Registeel, or Celesteela. They're going to take a hit, at the very least. They're all very, very bulky, so just Acerola them up. Plus, we can reuse this for Scizor if something like that we really need to later on because of Palpad, so it makes sense to play Acerola. So next up, we're playing 4 copies of Ultra Ball because we're playing Steel deck, and this is like the best way to get Pokemon. So 4 copies of Ultra Ball. Also helps discarding Metal Energy. Not something that we necessarily want to do, but if we do have a Registeel or a Solgaleo lead, then it's definitely going to be very useful. So next up, we have 2 copy of Nest Ball. So I know that Pokemon Fan Club does the same exact thing as playing 2 copies of Nest Ball. However, I just like I can't explain it. I like just having the Nest Ball grab the 1 Pokemon I need. I don't have to use the supporter for the turn. I'd rather use one of these other supporters. I think they're a lot more useful than Fan Club, especially in a deck where Scyther grabs itself. But in those cases where we want to grab a Registeel or a Delmise for the turn, or we want to go grab Solgaleo or Celesteela, if we didn't have Celesteela in play, all of a sudden we're tied at 6 prizes. Or we're not tied at 6 prizes. We have 6 prizes remaining among me and my opponent. Just Nest Ball, Celesteela, attach energy, gets whatever I have in the active spot out of there, go in for 160 damage. I like that idea a lot. And of course, we're playing 1 copy of Timer Ball. So Timer Ball is only going to allow us to grab Scizor, but at the very least, it is going to allow us to grab Scizor. There's about a 75% chance of grabbing one, and I think with that being in mind, definitely play at least 1 due to the fact that we can grab our main attacker. So next up, we got 3 copies of Metal Frying Pan. So we saw this in the Metagross deck profile I did. The Metal Pokemon this card is attached to takes 30 less damage from your opponent's attacks after applying weakness and resistance, and also they have no weakness. So whatever Metal Pokemon this is attached to, of course, is going to lose its weakness. Celesteela is a little bit irrelevant at the moment due to the fact that not a lot of people are playing Electric. But just removing Scizor's weakness could definitely be very important later on. But, also make sure Kartana doesn't get one-shot, or Registeel has a little bit more bulk to it. Same thing as Solgaleo. So, why not? Also, in conjunction with Scizor-GX's attack, that's minus 60 damage that our opponent is doing to us now, and I think that's really solid. So, this is also a weird inclusion, and we'll get into a little bit more later when I show you what my energy lineup is. But we're playing 2 copies of Multi-Switch. Now, I know that you can definitely just run 1 in here. I like the idea of running 2, due to the fact that, again, this is one of those decks that if you miss an energy attachment for the turn, it's going to be really, really bad. So, we have a Scizor in the active, has 1 energy. We have a couple of energy on the bench. All of a sudden, opponent thinks, we have to either retreat it or some other stuff, or we have the ability to get energy from our bench to our active, and I think that's something that could definitely catch our opponent off guard, especially if they pull up something like Celesteela and we need to retreat it or something, or just a lot of different variations. But this also helps Lele use Energy Drive if we really need it as a backup attacker as well. There's a lot of different things that can go on with Multi-Switch. Speaking of Switch, we're playing 2 copies of it. Yeah, we have quite a bit of retreat, and I have been very fond of Tate and Liza in the last few deck profiles I've made. However, again, this is one of those decks where we want to use one of these powerful supporters and not have to rely on something that's just a switch in a supporter form. We don't want to give up a turn of supporters just for something like that. So 2 copies of Switch seems really useful, necessary, if you would say. We have a lot of retreat in this deck, so getting whatever we don't want out of the active spot because our opponent Guzma'd it up, going to be very important. Playing a single copy of Palpad because I will be playing a single copy of Palpad in most decks. If it really calls for it, I'll play 2, but this is just an auto-include for me in every deck. Seriously, I just think it's super solid to be able to reuse some very powerful supporters. We have a copy of Field Blower. There's going to be some annoying stuff out there. Mainly our opponent also using Metal Frying Pan, if they wanted to do so. Choice Bands, we want to remove those if possible. But there are some stadiums that will still be played that can definitely still be very annoying. And just removing them from play seems like a good idea. If our opponent wanted to go ahead and play something like Lysander Lab, Metal Frying Pan has no effect. So just removing it from play seems like something good. One copy of Rescue Stretcher, because we wanted to shuffle in Pokemon that we need. We're playing a 4/3 line of Scizor. Of course, we're going to lose one down the road, maybe one surprise. That leaves us with one. We're going to want to use Rescue Stretcher to get it back. Also, reuse Lele, reuse Kartana. The only thing that we can't get back is Solgaleo Prism, because the Prisms go to the Lost Zone, but there is some versatility in it. And before we get into the energy, I'm actually playing one copy of Mount Coronet. So, this is here due to the fact that we're playing a limited amount of energy, and sometimes we're going to have to discard some, and we're not really going to be able to use Registeel or Solgaleo to get them back. But we really need energy, or maybe on those off turns where we whiff an energy, when we really don't want to, if Coronet is still in play, maybe we can use it. But once during your turn, you get to search your discard pile for 2 metal energy and put them into your hand. So that's just really nice. So our energy lineup is 8 metal energy. I was trying to divide it into 4s. So we got 8 copies of metal energy due to the fact that, again, we want to get those energies into play every turn if possible. It's going to be very important to do so. But mainly, it's a good amount to have. And we do want it to attack. It's necessary. And last but not least, I'm actually playing 2 copies of Warp Energy. So Warp is going to be kind of difficult to play, I feel like. Basically what it lets you do is it provides a colorless energy, which Scizor does have a colorless energy in its attack cost, so that's fine. When you attach this card from your hand to your active Pokemon, switch that Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. Essentially what this is a glorified switch. And I know what you're thinking, well, you could play Taintlez, you could play a Switch, you could play Escape Rope, you could play another Guzma. This also counts as energy, and I think that's pretty unique. We could have a weird turn where we just go Warp Energy to the active, multi-switch the Warp up, or the Metal Energy, or anything, but it's a great way to get whatever is in the active spot out of the active spot while also playing an energy for the turn. And again, with multi-switch, we could play this on Registeel. Registeel then goes to the bench, multi-switch it up to Scizor, and then all of a sudden Scizor's ready to attack. So I just thought it was kind of a cool inclusion. I definitely wanted to test it out a little bit, and I have high expectations for this deck just because it's got good matchups over Guardy. Guardy is going to be like the Rayquaza counter, and just a whole lot of other stuff. But yeah, that's basically what I was thinking when I was making this deck. I just wanted to be as annoying as possible, as bulky as possible, while also being as creative as possible, and trying to do a few things that I think is pretty good. I don't know. Anyway, that's my deck list. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, feel free to leave a like, comment, and or subscribe. Stay tuned for more deck profiles in the near future. We're also going to be trying to get some live battles done pretty soon with these deck profile videos I've done. And with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.